There's a magical chain of lakes in the north of the German state of Brandenburg. Rich in fauna, the region has preserved its pristine face to this day. Many of the lakes are crystal clear, an unusual cosmos of light. New arrivals from all around the world come to this remote place, while long-lost ones return. The deepest of these lakes is one of the best explored in Germany. And one of the cleanest. It's called Lake Stechlin. Steklo is the Slavic word for glass, and that's where Lake Stechlin got its name from. Its water is said to be so clear that you could read a newspaper at the bottom. Light penetrates more deeply here than in many other lakes. The sandy soil of Brandenburg has been washed out. There are few particles to impede the rays of the sun. Plants grow right down to a depth of 16 meters. That's unusual for northern German lakes. Ideal conditions for dense underwater meadows of rare stonewort algae. The lake is oxygen-rich, even at great depths. Clear, clean water. That's what Lake Stechlin is famous for. Large, dense beech forests protect the lake from agricultural nutrients such as fertilizers and slurry. One of the fastest birds on Earth has recently returned here, the peregrine falcon. Peregrines tend to nest on cliffs. The ones that nested in trees have gone extinct. Falcons that have been reintroduced to the wild are relearning the lost behavior through artificial nests. In 2001, the area was declared the Stechlin-Ruppin Conservation Area in order to protect the beech forests and the unique Clearwater lakes. They're ideal for the common goldeneye, the park's emblem bird. It breeds in old woodpecker cavities. Not long after hatching, the chicks follow their mother. The leaves on the ground dampen the fall. The ducklings walk through the forest to the lake in single file. They are determined to follow their mother's calls. Sometimes she looks after a dozen chicks or more. The young immediately start searching for food. They have to stick their head underwater. The sought-after food is often on the bottom of the lake. Their tail feathers stay up involuntarily. The chicks keep bobbing to the surface like corks. But with a bit of practice, they manage. They use their eyes to find their way. The clear water helps with that. The chicks have to beware. Large predators are everywhere. Pike hide under fallen trees. Some are up to 1.5 meters long. It's April. In the shallow water along the banks of the lake, the water temperature is around 5 degrees. The predatory fish are feeling the spring fever. The pike start their mating season. Again and again, large pike eat smaller pike. The males, no more than 90 centimeters long, are most at risk. But during mating, they're safe. During this time, the large female is demure and develops a biting inhibition. It's only when the mating process is over that she thinks about biting again. Several males are courting the selected female. They want physical contact to get her to lay her eggs. Pikes spawn in batches, every time one of the males contributes his dose to fertilize them. The dance between those willing to mate goes on for hours. The female has enough spawn. She could lay up to 280,000 eggs. That's enough for all the male pike to have their chance to reproduce. The sticky eggs adhere well to aquatic plants. The larvae hatch 2 to 3 weeks later. Later, the young pike mainly eat plankton and insects, such as water fleas and gnat larvae. Sometimes they get their mouths too full as they try to catch prey that's almost as big as them. Thousands of mosquito larvae can be found on the lake's surface in spring. They take in air via a siphon on their abdomen. After around 20 days in the water, they develop into mature mosquitoes. The Stechlin is almost twice the size of the North Sea island of Heligoland. It's almost 70 meters deep and filled with clean water, offering a wealth of food for all kinds of fishers. Ospreys eat almost nothing but fish. They can lift a catch up to half their own weight out of the water. If the fish is too heavy, the osprey is left with nothing. Brandenburg and the Stechlin-Ruppin Conservation Area see more osprey hatches than anywhere else in Europe. The couple have noisy neighbors. There are jays breeding next to them, and they believe the birds of prey are a threat. They're not. Ospreys don't care about jay chicks. The ospreys will have to put up with the annoying attacks for weeks. There are more than 100 lakes hidden in the forest of this conservation area in northern Brandenburg. Some are home to something precious. Germany's only turtle species. In the 19th century, the European pond turtle was widespread, but it was a popular Lenten food. In addition, many marshes were drained. It has disappeared almost everywhere in Germany. Most of the remaining ones live here in the conservation area. On land, everything has long since turned green, but spring takes hold later in the lake. Perch don't find much cover under the water lilies. Their leaves still have to grow. The plants seem to be wrapped in cotton wool. Once the temperature rises, the remaining shoots of the last summer come to life. Entire meadows of watermill foil reach for the sun and shoot up. Little dragons can be found among them. To impress the female, the great crested newt, which grows up to 20 centimeters long, performs its courtship display with the magnificent crest that gives it its name. It carefully checks every leaf. This is where it'll soon lay its eggs. At this time of year, land dwellers become water creatures. The ornamental fin also serves to increase the surface area of the newt. Amphibians can take in oxygen through their skin so that they don't have to gasp for air. After mating, the female lays up to 300 eggs. For every egg, it folds a small bag out of leaves to protect it from predators. Then, it waits until the glue is set before looking for the next leaf. The magnificent male doesn't have anything to do with this anymore. In addition to the great crested newt, the conservation area is home to the smooth newt, which grows up to 11 centimeters long. During the spawning season, the male's skin is spotted. Smooth newts are very adaptable and love sunny bodies of water that are rich in vegetation. Like the great crested newt, the brown female lays up to 300 eggs into small leaf pouches. After about 2 weeks, the larvae hatch. They have the appearance of a newt, but they still have external gills. Six to 10 weeks later, they'll lose their gills and transform into a newt with 4 legs that will go on land. European pond turtles were once so plentiful in this region that their shells were used as shovels to clean ovens. Truckloads of them were taken to markets in Berlin and sold as food. Fewer than 100 individuals survived. The few remaining animals are under strict protection. For a long time, scientists couldn't find any young turtles, just old ones, something they couldn't explain. Pond turtles like sunbathing. They spend most of their time in the water, and that's also where they mate. But they have to go on land to lay their eggs. Sometimes they walk for a kilometer or more to get to their traditional location in the forest. But the modern forest isn't like it used to be. It's full of new challenges. Even in this remote conservation area, the animals have to cross roads and paths. In many places, the forest was planted too densely, so that hardly any sunlight reached the ground. Turtle eggs need warmth and light to develop, otherwise they die. That's probably the reason why it's almost only old animals that are found. Clearings have been created where the females can lay up to 20 eggs in a hollow in the ground. But a further threat has come to the forests around Lake Stechlin. Raccoons from North America. Once released into the forests of central Germany, they reached Brandenburg in the mid-80s. Here, they attacked the last pond turtles. 60% of all animals that are caught have fresh injuries that point to the new arrivals. While the reptiles are enjoying the sun, the predator with the mask comes dangerously close. Using its front paws, it looks for snails and worms on the banks of the lake. A turtle would be a good catch for the raccoon. Safe. The turtles are safe from predators in the lake. It's the early summer. Things are turning green underwater too now. During their growth period, Water lilies and other plants withdraw so many nutrients from the lake that the water in Lake Stechlin becomes even clearer. The baby pike have occupied their territories. Once they reach a length of just 2 centimeters, they eat almost no plankton and start hunting other fish, such as young perch that are seeking cover in the sprouting underwater meadows. Hidden between the aquatic plants, the pike wait for their opportunity. They grow quickly. After 1 year, they can reach 15 and sometimes even 30 centimeters. They dash out at the right moment. Young perch are a fitting catch. They haven't developed hard fin rays and aren't as difficult to swallow as mature perch. The protected bays of the Stechlin are home to a different, delicate predator, the bladderwort, a carnivorous plant. As soon as a water flea touches the fine bristles, it's sucked in by the bladders and digested. On the bottom of the Stechlin, tench for food. They like to forage for small animals, such as crabs, worms, and mollusks in the mud of the meadows of the watermill foil and stonewort. Tench, as well as fish that have been released into the lake, such as grass carp, are a problem for the Stechlin. If too many of them throw up sediment while searching for food, the duff is deposited on the stonewort and they die. That leads to less oxygen in the lake and threatens the survival of numerous fish. Rainer Böttcher is a 6th-generation fisherman. He has specialized in catching Wendis in the lake. Using long nets, Rainer Böttcher pulls the fish, which is related to the herring, from a depth of around 15 meters. Wendis are typical inhabitants of oxygen-rich clear-water lakes. When they spawn, most of the eggs get caught on plants and develop there. They would die on muddy ground. The fishermen's yield depends on the water quality and the rich underwater flora. Each year they harvest around 2 to 3 tons from the lake. The ospreys don't have a problem to supply the 2 hungry young with fresh fish before migrating to Africa in the autumn. The conditions in Lake Stechlin weren't always this good. In the 1970s and 80s, the Wendis yield rapidly dropped to 1 ton per year. The neighboring Lake Nemitz was already connected to Lake Stechlin back then. East Germany's first nuclear power station went into operation here in 1966. It was cooled with water from Lake Nemitz. The water flowed into Lake Stechlin, warming it up. The Rheinsberg power station was closed down in 1990. Under the communists, nutrient-rich wastewater from a sewage treatment plant was also channeled into the lake. Microorganisms multiplied. The water became murkier and poorer in oxygen for years. Even during the construction of the nuclear power plant, a research station was set up to monitor the effects of the cooling cycle on the lake. The former fishing huts are now part of the Leibniz Institute of Freshwater Ecology and Inland Fisheries. The cutting-edge test facilities are unique in the world. Like huge test tubes, cylinders open at the top and bottom, going down 20 meters and allowing experiments in the lake. They can be used to study the effects of climate change, for example. Lake Stechlin is quite tucked away, and yet it's one of the best researched lakes in Europe. Something has happened in the peregrine's nest. After incubating the eggs for around 5 weeks, 2 chicks have hatched. They're going to be looked after by their parents for 6 to 7 weeks. During that time, they'll be shown how to raise young in trees. There are now more than 30 pairs of peregrine falcons in Brandenburg and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, breeding in trees instead of on cliffs. Once the young are fully fledged, they still stay near their parents for 4 to 6 weeks before leaving to find their own territory. The hope is that the next generation of tree-breeding peregrine falcons will settle in faraway forests. From here, they could reconquer old habitats where there are no cliffs for breeding, the forests of Central Europe all the way to the Ural Mountains, where they had long since disappeared. For the peregrine falcons, the forests are a stepping stone towards settling in new areas. Others have only been living on the Stechlin for a short while. The raccoon dog, for example. It reached the conservation area in the mid-90s after common raccoons. They originated in Eastern Asia and Japan. They were released in the Soviet Union as animals valued for their fur in the early 20th century. They breed like the proverbial rabbits, and so since then, these wild dogs have been conquering Europe. 6 to 10 puppies per litter is not unusual. The raccoon dogs often have their young in abandoned fox earths or badger setts. After 2 weeks, the young leave their burrow for the first time, and after 6 weeks, they're fully grown. Raccoon dogs are omnivores. They eat nuts, berries, and fruit, or they hunt for small animals at dawn. The Stechlin is an ideal habitat for them. Biologists are concerned that they will attack the last pond turtles, just like the common raccoons do. Since they have almost no natural predators, the new arrivals are spreading further into the centuries-old beech forests. In many places in the conservation area, dead trees are simply left standing. The forest rejuvenates around them on its own. dead wood is an important habitat and breeding space for many insects. Fully grown stag beetles, for example, where only the males have the antlers, spend a maximum of 1 month living outside. They spend up to 8 years as larvae living in and off a dead tree. A raccoon in lofty heights is observing the success of special protective measures. Something's happening in the sand of the clearing. After the trees were removed, the sun was able to warm up the breeding sites of the pond turtles. The eggs laid the previous year have developed. The baby turtles spent their first winter protected in the sandy ground. Now it's warm enough to set off to the lake. The small animals are creating an interest. It's worthwhile for the raccoons to keep an eye on the pond turtles' nesting sites. Quick! The new generation manages to reach the safety of the water just in time. This time, the raccoon was too slow. The Rhin, a particularly clean stream with otters living on its banks, flows right through the conservation area. It's an almost ideal habitat for them. They hunt for mollusks and fish. And the spiny cheek crayfish, a further new arrival. Native to America, they were released into the Oder River in the late 19th century. Now they're Germany's most common freshwater crustacean. The American immigrant also imported crayfish plague, a disease that it itself is immune to. The disease largely exterminated the European crayfish. The new arrival from America had free rein. It just about managed to get away from the hungry otter, who has no trouble finding prey. Fish is the otter's mainstay. It eats smaller tidbits in the water. But if the catch is larger, it withdraws to dry land to eat it in peace. There's another hunter on the Rhin, a very vibrant one. A kingfisher. It's after fish and tadpoles. This time, it caught a small perch. It immediately brings the fish to its nesting hollow on the cliffs. The hungry chicks are already waiting at the end of the self-dug tunnel, which is a good meter long. They're calling, but they're not arguing. One grabs the fish, the siblings wait patiently. A different chick will get a turn with the next mouthful. That way they all grow the same. They all eat around 10 fish a day now. That leaves very little time between catches. The Ruppiner land in northern Brandenburg, on the border with Mecklenburg, is still a species-rich stretch of cultivated countryside. It has resisted the changes that come with time more than Germany's other regions. In the forests and lakes, some of the gaps of the past even close on their own. They had disappeared from the Stechlin for 250 years. Now they're back again. Beavers. They were hunted to extinction, a popular Lenten food. Around 2,000 of them have returned on their own accord from the Elbe via the Havel into the Rhine and then to Lake Stechlin. There are several beaver settlements very close to the lake. In the summer, they mainly eat leaves. The eager architect has built dams and beaver castles known as lodges. This is where the young grow up. The young are just 2 weeks old. They have fur and can see from birth. But they're not ready to go into the water yet. It'll be a little while before they come out of the lodge. Hungrily, they await their mother. Finally, she returns from her morning breakfast run. The entrance of the lodge is always underwater. Beavers can grow very large, weighing up to 40 kilos. They can be bigger than deer. Even though the lodge looks like a mere pile of branches, the beavers have smoothed and padded the spacious living area very well. The young immediately greet their mother. They will stay with their parents until next year. When they're bigger, they'll watch and learn how to build dams and lodges. The mother beaver carefully dries her fur before she starts feeding her young. At the moment, they're only getting her milk. In 1 or 2 weeks, they'll leave the lodge for the first time and try fresh herbs. The mother will suckle her young for 2 months. Her milk is twice as nutritious as cow's milk. Once they've all found a teat, the lodge finally quiets down again. They'll soon conquer the conservation area from here. More than 50 species of dragonfly live on Lake Stechlin, including the brown hawker, which lays its eggs in the water. Towards the end of summer, large shoals of fish congregate in the lake's lavish green. Pike are lurking for prey. But the perch have a trick. If a hunter comes too close, they raise their spiked dorsal fins in defense. Here comes the pike. And up goes the dorsal fins. This time, the perch loses the fight. Autumn is coming. The mating calls of the fallow deer can be heard in the Menzer forest near Lake Stechlin. In the morning, many a stag gathers his strength for the upcoming battles for females. Raccoons are already growing their winter coat. They're searching for food to build up some fat reserves for the cold season. Autumn has arrived underwater too. The plants break down. And decay. The water becomes dull again. Fish can't find much cover now. They gather under fallen trees. Many withdraw to the depths of the lake. Some of the pike follow. It's always been like this in Lake Stechlin in the constant flow of the seasons. To this day, the magical lake has maintained its pristine character. Many changes have come its way. Power station and sewage treatment plants have damaged it, and introduced species are making it difficult for native ones. But even so, it has still managed to defy all the onslaughts. Embedded in extensive forests, a rare oasis of nature has been preserved here. One of the cleanest lakes in Germany, crystal clear Lake Stechlin in Brandenburg.